We're here in the main level of Deepwood with Betty Merle, the curator. So tell us a bit about the history of the building.
Well, the house was built in 1894 by Dr. Luke Port, and W.C. Knighton was the architect. And at the time the house was built, this was the nicest house in Salem. I like to think it still is.
And what current exhibits can people check out in this building, and what are some seasonal exhibits or things people can expect?
Okay. That's a great question, because sometimes people say, well, I was at Deepwood 5 or 6 years ago and no one's in town I need to take. But we do have exhibits that change probably quarterly. That the current exhibit is called Victorian Ladies Exhibit. So we have a number of wonderful pieces upstairs, some from our own collection and some from individuals in the community that showcase dresses or different kinds of pieces from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. We have upcoming exhibit that will focus on all things celebrating weddings. It's called Dearly Beloved. So that's going to be a quite exciting with some wonderful pieces. We're setting that up now. And then we've got a couple of other things coming up. One of the things that's going to be pretty awesome this fall, we're going to have part of the exhibit dedicated to Victorian mourning traditions. So we will have pieces that commemorate the ending of a life and the traditions that you would have at that time.
Well, it sounds great, and walking around the building, you just get a sense of awe because of all of the great, artifacts in here. And how much of the original, furnishings and architecture was kept during, renovation for tours and events?
Most of the renovation that has been done by the owners. If people notice when they're in the front parlor that there are no pocket doors to the back parlor, those were taken out by the owners. It's nothing that's been done by the city or Friends of Deepwood. So we try to maintain the integrity of the original fabric of the house. We have very, very few things that belong to any of the owners. We have a painting and a couple of belongings of Dr. Port. We know that Lizzie Port used tea leaf china, so we have several of those pieces and one that she donated. We do have a bedroom set that belonged to Alice Brown that was purchased from Myron Frank. I believe that was in the 30s. I don't recall the exact date, but that belonged to her. So just a few pieces, and the rest have been donated by citizens in Salem or people in the state that have donated wonderful things to us to share.
Well, it's really come together in what's kind of a very romantic environment, and I understand a lot of people come here to sort of propose maybe on the grounds or take prom pictures. How much of that do you get?
Well, there are always people taking pictures, whether it's wedding pictures or some quinceañera pictures, graduation pictures. There's always somebody on the grounds with a camera, whether it's professional photography or people just as a hobby taking pictures all the time, because the gardens are open.
Yeah, and it photographs really well, and beyond that, we talked about the building changing hands, the original owners. Can you tell us about some of the original occupants, maybe the Port family?
Yeah, the Ports who built the house, Dr. Luke Port and Lizzie Port, they only lived in the house for a very short period of time because their son passed away. And this is the memorial stained glass window is thought that was put in to commemorate that, but that's just a story. We don't know for sure. They moved to San Diego and sold it to the Binghams. The Binghams put in carpet and a couple of other things, lived here for a number of years, and then it was sold, and Alice Bingham, Brotherton Brown lived in the house. And she was the one who commissioned the gardens by Lord and Shriver, and the famous women landscape architecture firm. And then at the passing, it was saved by the community for use as a museum. It's owned by the city and managed by the Friends of Deepwood.
Well, that sounds great. It's great to see how far the building has come. It still remains, I think, one of the most beautiful places in Salem to visit. And as you come inside, the stained glass and all the windows and curtains, it just comes together with a very homey effect. But it's out here, and it just adds a really nice touch. Tell us about some of the artifacts that you might find in here. I mean, I know there's quite a bit to mention, but you talked a bit about some of the artifacts that give the facade of a more expensive material, and some of the original dining sets and all that.
Right. Well, gosh, we could be here for days. One of the things that people first notice when they come in is the furniture. Many of the pieces of furniture are period appropriate furniture. And so you notice the ornate carvings and very lush colors. We do have a carpet that is quite spectacular that is not original, but it's in the style. It's a pattern that's appropriate, that if you were to look at this kind of pattern in your own home today, you'd say, my goodness, it's so busy, and it's blue and it's orange and it's red. And yet, in order to compete with all of the lush colors in the house, it has to stand up, because if you really think about it, we have orange walls in the front room and we have burgundy upholstery. And somehow when you look in, it all goes together. And the woodwork is very orange. We've got the Eastern oak and very, very nice woodwork in the house that's original. And I think that some of the pieces that we've got an upstairs sink that looks like it's marble because it's in a marble counter, but if you look underneath, it's not marble. It's ironstone. It's been manufactured in New York, and in a way, when you talk about ironstone, it's this is a piece of ironstone. Mm-hmm. This was made in London. This is a tea leaf pattern that we're referring to, that the Ports owned this pattern, and this would be something that they would use for every day. And so we've begun to collect it, and this dates from about the mid-1800s. And yet when you talk about it, it looks very contemporary, very clean line pattern. It's not fussy. Mm-hmm. So we like to think that, like so many things at Deepwood, it's kind of ageless.
Yes, it is.
And unusual for a number of years, but at the time this house was built, is look at how high the ceilings are. So even though the rooms themselves aren't extremely large, it gives the sense of volume. So it's that sense of comfort. So you have a really large over mantle on the fireplace, but it balances because you have such big doors and high ceilings. Mm-hmm. That it's large, but it's human scale.
Exactly.
So it's made for people.
Yeah, and can you tell us about the grounds? I know it's not exactly the right season, but the gardens, in spring and summer just really make add the finishing wonderful to the house and the yard. Can you tell us more about the grounds?
Yes, the house itself is on just under 5 acres, and on the grounds we have a nice mix. There is the Rita Steiner Nature Trail. So there's a nature trail that a number of organizations and people have been working on to weed out non-natives or invasive species. As a matter of fact, probably about the time things get going in late March, we'll have a lot of wildflowers blooming. Mm-hmm. And we already have bulbs coming up, and we have some other things. The gardens are always beautiful no matter what season. Yeah. But then a highlight is that close to the house that we have the Lord and Shriver Gardens, that the landscape architecture firm Lord and Shriver were commissioned by Alice Brown to design and install plants. And they designed it so it's like a series of rooms, outdoor rooms, and each has its own little flavor, some more intimate and others more grand. And that's one of the reasons why the grounds are so popular for either walking or getting away from work at lunchtime to have your lunch in the garden. Other people, you can see that they're having a romantic stroll or some of those proposals that you're talking about. And we have a number of people get married in the gardens every year. They're just a beautiful backdrop for weddings. And when the grounds are open, that people are welcome to come and have photographs, because the species of flowers are just lovely all year round. But I have to say May and June are when they're at their peak.
Okay. And how can people get involved with visiting Deepwood or attending the events? How can they find out more?
There's a couple of things. You'll probably, I don't know if you can flash a number up on the screen for the phone number to call, but also, and they can sign up to get on our newsletter, which is either a mail newsletter, or we also have an email updates of activities and events. But our website is Historic Deepwood Estate, no spaces, no underscore, at yahoo.com.